What is up, guys? My name is Lex. It's currently 11:42 on a Saturday, September 28th, and we're going to have a very long day today. Today, I'm leaving South Florida around Fort Lauderdale area. I'm driving 4.5 hours up to Jacksonville, Florida to play on the Best Bet live stream. It's 10/25/50. I've got $30,000 in my bag right here. I'm ready to play some big games. We're going to drive all the way up there. We're going to play for 5 hours and then drive all the way back. It's going to be like a 14, 15-hour day. I've done this one time before. It's kind of like a mental toughness test a little bit, but I'm going to bring you guys there with me. Let's go. All right, we have made it off the turnpike. We are now heading to 95 North to Daytona Beach and then up to Jacksonville. So I mentioned maybe back in February that I got Invisalign. Well, that treatment is now done. So I have $3,000 teeth right now. Just finished up that treatment. Feel pretty happy with it. I mean, I think they're basically perfect. I don't know. Feel like it was money well spent. Last video I posted, I played a hand where I had aces on a 7-7-6-7 king board. Okay, so I got a full house. I got the second nuts. Oh, well, Lex, you don't have the second nuts because pocket kings is the second nuts. Well, yeah, but the way it was played, nobody has pocket kings. Nobody's just calling pre-flop the pocket kings. Anyway, I ended up losing the quads to a Euro Pro, and there was a bunch of internet chat pros in the chat saying, oh, you should have got away from it. You shouldn't have bet the river. I would have checked this one back. I put them on quads, blah, blah, blah. Well, I am going to finally put you guys to the test. I'm going to put you chat pros to the test. You know how you can do it? You can come down to Florida anytime that I'm here, and we can play heads up. Any chat pro that ever wants to do this, you can come down to Florida anytime. Message me, email me. We can do it. But we're going to play 10-25 no limit, $2,500 buy-ins, $100 or 100 big blinds, and you must come with $25,000. So that is 10 buy-ins total. So anybody who ever wants to come down here to Florida, we can play heads up, 300 hands, maybe more, maybe less, 10-25 no limit, $2,500 buy-ins with $25,000 max bankroll for the game. So all you chat pros that love talking shit, that love to say you know exactly what to do, well, this is your chance. Come down to Florida, send me an email, lexopoker@gmail.com, send me an Instagram, hell, I'll even fucking give you guys my number. You can text me, you can Snapchat me. I don't care. Let's do it. I'm ready. I'm ready for you. It's raining. 346. Best Bet, Jacksonville. We've made it. I take my seat, and there's actually only 6 players in the starting lineup today. We start out at a 10-25 blind level. I buy in for $5,000, but pretty quickly the blinds go up. 10-25, mandatory $50 straddle under the gun. This game is big. There's going to be some big pots. Let's get right into it. I raise a beautiful 6-7 suited in the cutoff position. I get a call from the dealer button, Todd, and we're going heads up here out of position to a Yahtzee flop. King 6-7. I bet out 225, and the button makes a call. Turn 5, I size up now to $650 into a $785 pot. This time it gets the job done, no more value for us, and we take down our first pot. I can tell pretty quickly that this lineup is going to be a lot different than some of the other Best Bet live streams I've played in the past. This lineup is tough, a lot of 3-betting, a lot of tough players at the table. I got to bring my A game. I raise ace-2 offsuit in the small blind. When it folds to me, make it 150, and Carson makes the call in the largest blind. I flop top pair and bet out 125, and he makes the call. Turn Queen of Spades, an interesting card. Brings in the flush, brings in some 2 pairs, also brings in some straights as well. With a top pair holding very bad kicker, I think my hand just wants to check here out of position, but I decide to keep betting for somewhat of a small sizing. I make it $225, thinking I can get called from any kind of Queen X hand, some Jack X hands, and potentially get value from a 1 spade hand. 225 over to Carson, who thinks and then puts in a raise. One pumpkin chip and announces $800. Definitely an interesting spot, given the fact that he did not 3-bet preflop. Don't expect him to really have any sets here other than pocket fives. He's representing a flush when he raises this turn card, or some bluffs. Some bluffs he could have could be something like King Jack with the King of Spades, maybe Queen 10 with the 10 of Spades, possibly a 5x of spade bluffing hand. I think this one's close. I'm not sure exactly what my hand wants to do. I have the 2 of Spades, terrible card. I could be drawing completely dead. I think earlier on in this session, I could just find a better spot. Top pair, bad kicker, bad flush draw. I decided to fold, and Carson gets this bluff through with the 5x with the 5 of Spades. A nice little bluff candidate there, blocking the 5x of Spades that I could potentially have in my range. With the $50 straddle and the stack sizes, this table is very short, so with Queen Jack of Spades under the gun, I just min-raised to $100, looking to keep these pots manageable, looking to keep the stacks a little bit deeper, considering that not many people at this table have much over 100 big blinds. I make it $100, min-raise under the gun. I end up getting a decent amount of action here with 3 callers and go 4 ways to a 6, 7, 8 2-diamond board. Gross. Not going to be putting any money in here. I check, and it checks all the way around. Turn queen, giving me top pair, but on this board, multi-way, I'm just going to check, try to get to showdown. River card pairs the board and brings in a flush. Big blind player checks. Third blind player bets out $200. Tough spot here with top pair, getting a good price, but against this player type, I don't think he's ever betting a hand that I'm beating. I think he would always check a weaker queen. Don't think he's bluffing multi-way, so I make a pretty tight discipline laydown, and it's a good thing I do because I was up against a full house and the nut flush. All right, moving along here, blind still at 10, 25, 50. Under the gun player makes it 125. There's a call on the button, and I have ace 10 of clubs in the small blind, a hand I could easily 3-bet. However, I don't really like 3-betting a hand like this from an under the gun raise from a good, tight, aggressive player, but we are 6-handed, so his range could be a little wider. I think my hand could go either way, call or raise. This time I decided to just call. We're going 5 ways to an ace-high board, giving me top pair. There hasn't been too many players getting way out of line at this table so far, so when Carson bets out here into 4 other players for a smaller $175 bet on this board, the alarm bells are already ringing in my head. I feel like he either flopped a monster or he's got a monster draw. However, my hand is still very good. I have a backdoor flush draw. We're pretty deep stacked, so I make the call. Going heads up now to a King of Hearts turn card. Doesn't bring me any extra equity with a flush draw, but I do pick up a straight draw now. There's $975 in the middle. I check to my opponent, kind of hoping he checks this one back and we can get to showdown, but he does not. He fires out a $1,000 pot-sized bet, and we are in a tough spot with our top pair. Versus his under-the-gun raising range, betting into all these players on the flop, he can have every single set on this board, all the 2 pairs on this board, and all the straights as well. I feel like we're only beating a hand like 9-10 of diamonds or Queen 9 of diamonds. Everything else we're crushed against, so I make another fold with top pair with an ace, and this time it turns out to be correct when we were up against a monster, against ace queen, top 2 pair on the flop. One thing that I have been working on is trying to make some disciplined folds when I know I'm beat. In the past, I've just paid off some bets. One thing I really liked about Garrett Adelstein was his ability to bluff big and read his opponents, and also his ability to make some really disciplined folds as well. This next one could get big. Carson raises under the gun to 125. He has been fairly active with raising and re-raising so far this session. Back over now to Kyle on the button, who puts in a 3-bet to 375. Now, Kyle hasn't been too active with raising and re-raising so far, so I think he's going to have a pretty tight range when he re-raises from the under the gun position. I've got king queen of clubs in the small blind and elect to just flat call. Ideally, you don't want to really be calling 3 bets out of position, especially when the initial raiser is from the early position and could put in a 4-bet and squeeze out your money. Also, my hand could easily be dominated. King queen is dominated by ace king, ace queen, aces, kings, and queens. However, I drove all the way up here to play a live stream. I have great, beautiful, suited Broadway cards. I feel like I know somewhat of the range of what Kyle should have here, given the fact that he hasn't really gotten too much out of the line. I think if I smash a board, I could win a massive pot, and also, I think Carson opening up wider makes it less likely that he'll put in a 4-bet here. So anyway, I call, and we end up going 3 ways to a Jack 4-4 one club board. I completely miss on this board. I check under the gun checks. Button puts out a $400 1/3 size pot bet. Interesting spot. Well, not too interesting. With a player behind and a 3-bet pot, probably could just easily let go of my cards. But I get very sticky here and make the call, thinking I could pick up some backdoor equity, could hit a pair, or could potentially bluff later on. Turn 10 of hearts, I check, and the button instantly checks behind, which I feel like is definitely a timing tell. I don't really look too much into timing tells, but I feel like at the speed at which he checked, we can somewhat discount hands like pocket jacks and pocket tens from his range for having full houses. I think if he has a full house here and I check to him on the turn, he's going to take a couple seconds, maybe 10, 15 seconds, to decide whether he wants to check or continue to bet. But when he snap checks, I don't think he's going to have those hands very often. I also don't think he's going to have a hand like ace-king or ace-queen very often, because I think he would also take a little bit more time to decide if he wants to double barrel on this board or if he wants to check and give up. So with this timing tell, I feel like he just always has some showdown value here, meaning that I think he has a pair that's strong but not super strong. I do think it's possible he could have pocket eights or pocket nines. I bet the flop checks back the turn. I also think it's very possible he could have a hand like pocket queens that is worried about me having pocket jacks or pocket tens, or maybe even a slow played pocket kings and pocket aces. Now, let's get back to the hand here. There's over $2,000 in the middle. I've got king high, and I'm up against an opponent who most likely just has a one single pair hand. So now the question is, how do we win this pot? Do we check to him, hoping he'll value bet a hand like aces, kings, and queens, and then jam all in? Should we lead out ourself for a bluff with half pot, pot, or over pot? I got the vibe from this player that this game was big for him, maybe one of the bigger games that he had played. I also got the vibe that he would be a player who could potentially talk himself into making a big fold with a hand like aces, kings, and queens on this board, putting me on a full house or a 4. So I decide, all this going through my head, that I'm just going to try to apply max pressure to a 1-pair hand, and I announce all in.
And he does rip it all in. What in the world? Oh my god. What a rip. What an absolutely disgusting hand, Lexel. Holy. Yeah. And you hear Kyle, he said, I think I have to pay this one off. I mean, is he ever cold calling in a small blind with jacks? Or tens? Maybe. Not too worried about ace 4, and he does put in a call.
I'm not nibble-lining, man. That's just like not a good card.
Well, at least we got him to think about it for a little bit, right? Would have sucked if he just snapped us off there. I feel a couple ways about this hand. One, I feel like this is just a punt from the beginning. This is why it's so important to have just good pre-flop mechanics. Calling out of position with a hand like this just kind of sets you up for disaster, especially up against a player who's most likely not getting out of line. I think calling here would be great if I was up against a huge action player or whale, but against a guy who's competent and has most likely a good hand, I think it's just a punt. Now, I think the call on the flop is also a bit loose and definitely punty as well. And the river jam, of course, is just unnecessary. I mean, I'm only in the pot for $700 some. Could have easily just checked and given up. But I went with my read. I thought I could easily get him to fold 8s or 9s or maybe even queens. Definitely get him to fold ace-king or ace-queen. This time, it did not work out. We end up losing a massive one here, about $10,000 worth of a pot. I'm now down over $6,000. I got about $2K left in my stack. Normally, I would always just snap rebuy in a situation like this and try to get my stack to at least 100 big blinds, but I'm getting a massage, and I decided that I'm just going to ride out this short stack, this 2K stack, and just try to double up from some of these big stack players. Also, it just kind of is a little bit easier playing short stack. You can just flop a pair and go all in and hope for the best. So for the next couple hands, I ride out this 2K stack. I decide to jam all in on the turn here with a straight and flush draw, and I get 2 bigger flush draws to fold and win this pot. A few hands later, I got pocket aces. I raise, get 3-bet, I jam all in for 50 bigs, and my opponent folds there as well, and we get back around $1,000 that we lost with the king-queen hand. Another reason I didn't add on right away, I was trying to spin up this buy-in, considering that I don't really want to get into this game for so much money, considering that the lineup is pretty stacked. It's probably going to be tough to get my money back. Anyway, I do add on for another 2K a few hands later. I have a $5,600 stack now, in for 10K, down close to 5,000 before I look down at pocket kings. I raise to $100 under the gun and get 3 callers before Kyle, the guy I just gifted around $4,500 to, re-races me to $500. A great spot to be in, except it is going through my head that this was the guy who 3-bet earlier with pocket aces. Could he have aces again? All this stuff goes through your head when you're running and or playing bad, but my hand's a monster. Second best hand you can get. We got a 4-bet. I make it $1,300 to go. Once I raise from early position and there's 2 callers and Kyle squeezes here out of position, I think he will have a strong hand a lot of the time. Hands like pocket jacks, queens, kings, aces, and ace-king. So I'm definitely assuming he's going to be calling here, or maybe better yet, he just rips it all in. He glances over at my stack to see how much I'm playing. It's about $5,000. He deliberates a little bit and then decides to call. So now we are going heads up here in position, 4-bet pot with pocket kings to the nuts. King 5-2 rainbow. Obviously it's great to flop the nuts in a 4-bet pot, but I do feel like this king is going to kill my action. It's less likely he's got ace king when I have 2 kings and there's a king out there, and I think he's just going to have jacks and queens a lot of the time. So I decided to go with a very, very small bet on this flop. 15% of the pot, $400, somewhat of a blocker bet here, thinking that he's going to have to continue with basically every hand versus this sizing. He's going to have to call with jacks. He's going to have to call with queens. Might even have to call with a hand like ace-queen of hearts or ace-queen of diamonds, which he does. He makes the call, and the turn card is a jack, which I think is a good card. Now just praying he has a hand like pocket jacks and hit a set. When he checks over to me, I decide to get tricky and trappy here and slow play and check this one back. River card, ace of clubs, $3,600 in the middle of this pot. Kyle thinks and checks to me for a 3rd time. It's going to be tough to get paid off by pocket queens, but he could have ace king, could have ace queen, could have pocket jacks. I'm going to go for the max. I've got a good image. I announce all in.
Or a little over one, excuse me. Yeah, and there's the all in and quick call from Kyle. Shows king. This is just nasty work here, man.
You missed it about like 7 or 8 minutes ago when Lexo bluffed into Kyle for all of it. And now Lexo gets it all back and then probably some. Wow.
Yes, we get it all back and some, winning an $11,500 pot. Now, this is just a sick, nasty cooler. Top 2 pair versus a set in a 4-bet pot. I'm glad I went all in there on the river. I do think if I would have bet something like half pot or 2/3 pot, my opponent may have just called. So, glad I went for the max. Got the full double up here, over $5,000 worth of profit in one hand. I then turn back to the massage therapist and tell her, you know what? Let's just keep this one going. Maybe you are good luck after all. $11,500 in my stack. We are now up 1.5K on the night. Over the next half an hour, I win 2 pots. One, I get king, queen of diamonds and make a flush, and then I get pocket queens, 3-bet pre-flop, bet the flop, bet the turn. My opponent folds, and I now have a $12,500 stack. One of the reasons I drove all the way up here to best bet in Jacksonville was to play some deeper stacked, bigger stakes poker. I usually play 5-10 or 5-10-25, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 deep. Now we're playing 10, 25, 50. I've got $12,000 in my stack, and I look down at ace king offsuit. The cutoff player races to 125, I re-raise to 450, and Miguel makes the call. Jack 9-3 rainbow, completely missing on this board. Out of position, I check, and the cutoff checks behind. Turn king of clubs, giving me top pair, top kicker, also bringing in a flush draw. I lead out for 325, and Miguel makes the call. River card gives me trips with another king, and I have to decide now what bet sizing should I use. One of the only good things about punting away your stack earlier on in the session and having everyone see is that you can go for max value when you have big hands. Normally, I would not overbet the size of the pot with this hand, but given my image, given the fact that I did jam all in with king high earlier, I'm going to go big here with ace king on this board. I make it $2,000 into a $1,500 pot, hoping he's got something like jack 10 suited, pocket 10s, maybe pocket 8s, or even a hand like king 10 or king queen. I'm feeling pretty good about this situation until Miguel announces all in. Oh my God, this is disgusting. I overbet the size of the pot on this board with trips with an ace kicker, and now I'm facing a jam all in for $1,600 more. This is the face right here of someone who knows they're going to lose a $10,000 pot, but also knows that I just have to call with my hand. I have to call $1,600 to win a $10,000 pot. I could be chopping, could sometimes be winning against king 10 or king queen, but most of the time I'm most likely beat here. Eventually I flick in the chips and get shown the bad news. Pocket jacks, top set on the flop. Trips for me are no good. My opponent has a full house, and just like that, easy come, easy go, a $10,000 pot. Going the other way, I end up losing around $4,500 to $5,000 in this hand. This one kind of hurt. I had just gotten out of the hole. I was about to profit $2,500 on the night after being stuck almost $5K, and now I'm right back down into the hole, down about $3,000. At this point, we had been playing poker for 4 hours. The stream was set to go for 5 hours. It was 8 o'clock, and I had over a 4.5-hour drive back to South Florida. When the new dealer came in, I decided, you know what? I think it might just be time to go.
Giveaway must have an Instagram, and I think Lex is actually calling it a night. So shout out to Lex. Thanks for driving up here, taking your time to play with us here on the stream. Didn't run the best. Unfortunately, I ended up stuck about 3,500 after that last hand, so not the worst thing ever, but still shout out to Lexo.
I've never done this before, but I don't know why I went around the table and shook everyone's hand as if I just busted out of the $10,000 main event in Las Vegas. But when I was cashing out my chips, Todd, the guy in the white hat here, texted me and said, "Is there a reason you didn't shake Don's hand at the end?" Don is the player in seat number 1, a regular on Best Bet Jacksonville. Super nice and friendly guy. I've been playing with him for a couple of years. Obviously, I didn't do it on purpose, but I had to come back after cashing out my chips and give him some love with a big bear hug, a big bro handshake, and then finally I end up calling it a night. All right, time to head home. 4 hours. I left the stream an hour early. I've never done that in my entire life. I'll talk more in about 4 hours when I'm back in South Florida. And 13 hours later, getting off the turnpike, almost home. Pretty sleepy, not gonna lie. Ended up losing $2,300 in that session tonight. So honestly, not too bad. Not that bad of a loss. Ended up playing 3 big pots. First one, somewhat punted it off there with king, queen of clubs. Second one, a pretty massive cooler 4-bet pot, a set versus top 2 pair. And then the last one, another cooler, full house versus top trips in a 3-bet pot. Yeah, I don't know if there's really much I could do there. I don't think I played my best tonight, but I also don't think I played bad either. Made it. River. River. And rogue. There's rogue. So when I left today, I mentioned that I had never left a live stream before, but that's actually false. 3 years ago, if you guys have been a fan for 3 years, I left TCH Live in Austin, Texas. I left that game about an hour early. Ironically, it was the same kind of situation of what happened tonight. I had a hand with Big Daddy Chaz where he flopped a set, and I went runner, top pair, trips with ace queen, exactly like the hand tonight, where my opponent flopped a set and I went king, and I left both times. It's kind of weird how that happened. I didn't even think about it tonight, but I left for a couple reasons. One, I had just lost an $8,000+ pot, kind of got coolered, and I was a little mad at myself with the way I played. I think I played that hand really bad. I think it was a pretty terrible blunder. The bet sizing on the river was really bad. Should be betting a lot smaller, like 1/4 or 1/3 size of the pot on the river, or maybe even checking, to be honest. But I bet 2,000 into 1,500, which is just a terrible bet size, because when he jams for 1,200 more, I got a call. But if I bet 300 and he makes it 1,500, I could probably find the fold versus that player type. So I was mad at myself there, kind of annoyed with the cooler, and also just felt like I wasn't going to get my money back. This table tonight was super tough. Very competent players. A lot of the players were most likely professional poker players. Zero soft spots. Everyone was competent, knew what they were doing. Tight, aggressive, tough players. And I'm more about game selection now. I've been trying to get into that, the last couple of years, where I used to just grind 5-10 no matter what. Doesn't matter if the game's good or bad, I would grind the game. I would grind 10-25 no matter what. Now that I have a little bit more time, or I have the options potentially to play other games, I really try to just play the best games possible. So if the game's not good, I usually leave. And if the game's good, I try to stay as long as I possibly can and try to capitalize on those good games. So basically tonight, my opinion is the game was really bad. It was really tough. It was not a profitable game for me, but I drove 4 hours up there. I'm going to play the stream for a while, but after 4 hours, I called it quits. I was also really exhausted. I've had a really long week. Sunday was the night that I played super late, battling against a VIP player at Hard Rock. The last video I posted, where I got aces, losing to quads, played till like 5:30 a.m. that night. Wednesday this week, 3 days ago, I played till 2 or 3 a.m. where I was down $12,000 in a big game and ended up clawing all the way back to win a couple $1,000s. Thursday was my Coconut Creek game, which we played till like 2 or 3 a.m. Last night, I went out in Fort Lauderdale to a bar and got drinks and dinner and stuff, and then drove all the way up there today. So pretty exhausted. It's been a long couple of days. But, when you're making these, live stream games, like, I understand that it's very hard to find great lineups all the time. So it was a little disappointed, I'll say, to drive all the way up to Best Bet and have a lineup that was like way tougher than the games I play down here. Basically, like, why the hell did I drive 4 hours up here? But it's super tough to get really good lineups, especially for that stake size. And in the past, I played some amazing games at Best Bet. I played some awesome 50-100s or 25-50-100 games. I played some really soft 5-10 games. So I think this one was just a little unlucky. The lineup just was pretty tough, a little unfortunate, but what can you do? I do find it interesting, though. I notice that as I'm playing softer games, as I'm playing in games with less professional poker players, I'm finding that I have become almost a worse poker player. So if I'm playing in a game with a lot of pros, like 5, 6, 7 pros, I'm going to have to play a certain way in order to not lose, in order to win. I have to battle against these guys. And I've battled in Vegas. I've battled in LA. I've battled down here at the Hard Rock. There's so many goddamn pros that come through the Hard Rock playing 5-10. I got to battle with them to try to win. But lately, the past couple months or a year or so, and then starting my own game, I've been playing games where instead of 6 or 7 pros, I'll be playing against 6 or 7 recreational players. And the game's amazing. And there's a ton of action and a ton of chips being thrown around. But I had a hard time, switching from game style. Like, when I first started playing these recreational heavy games, I was getting crushed because I was playing like I used to against pros, against recreational players, and it's much different. And now I'm finding that I'm playing against a lot more fun, friendly, recreational players. So then when I go play pros, I'm just like a super soft, passive player, because that's how I play in my game. Like, in my game, I play pretty passive. I don't 3-bet that often. I don't really bluff too often. I don't really hero call that often. But in pro-infested games against tough players, you have to do that. You have to bluff more. You have to 3-bet. You have to 4-bet. You have to be able to call down. So tonight I made a couple folds that really weren't that good, which they would have been good if you're playing in a game full of recreational players that don't really bluff that much. But against some tough pros, you're going to have to call down a little bit. So I've had a little bit of a tough time, you know, switching back and forth with game styles because, of course, you get used to a certain way. You kind of start playing and figuring out a certain game type, and then you switch it up a little bit. Now, even though I'm becoming a worse poker player, meaning that my skills aren't as good, my results are the best they've ever been. So, of course, I'll take the money over my skill set. In the beginning, I feel like I always tried to be the best poker player. I was trying to be the best vlogger. I was trying to move up in stakes as high as possible and play nosebleeds like Garrett Adelstein, Tom Dwan, you know, Jungle Man and Doug Polk and stuff like that. But my thoughts and goals have kind of changed now. My goals now are to put together the best game possible, try to get the best groups together, try to be the most friendly, fun environment for people to have fun and play poker and enjoy the game. And I've never enjoyed playing poker as much as I have the past couple months after I started making my game, just because it makes poker fun when, you know, you're around people that you like to be around. You're around people that enjoy talking and joking, and, you know, you're not around a bunch of miserable pros who are putting in 12-hour days and hate their life. But anyway, I'm exhausted now. It's past 1 a.m. And oh yeah, the heads up challenge that's open to anyone. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of nice comments in this video about the punts I made and the ace-king hand and blah, blah, blah. So if you want to, if you think you can beat me, if you think it's an easy money, come down to Florida, get yourself $25,000, put it in a front money account, let me see it, then we'll do some heads up, $1025, $2,500 buy-in, whenever you want, you know, up to X amount of hands, we can figure it out. Send me an email, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you guys want. I'm going to go to sleep. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please like, comment, subscribe. Until next time, I'll see ya.